Okay, so for us, the overall objective was to design and implement the following services into CXM. So we thought, why start small when we can actually start big? So these were all the case types that we wanted to implement. So for us, we had a fixed deadline for this project, which was the 1st of June 2018. That's because our contract with Salesforce was going to end at this date. And we actually felt that throughout this process that we were bold and we were brave. So we started working on this in August 2017. This deadline added additional pressure to what was already a full-on project. We decided, because of this deadline, to develop and deploy all the case types listed in that time. In hindsight, it might have been easier to start with a service that was not as deeply ingrained as the customer services case types, because they touched on the entire council. But as I said on the slide, we were bold and we were brave. There were perhaps other words to describe how we felt as part of the process, but in the end, this does actually sum up how the whole project team felt, and that was our approach and success. It is so important, as you would expect, to get the project team resources right from the get-go. We did encounter some confusion with our ICT colleagues at the beginning as to what they were doing and what they were responsible for. So a good learning point here is to agree with Jadu and ICT the roles and the deliverables. Due to the lack of resource we had at the time, I became the project manager, business analyst and trainee communications manager. All good fun. So the first task right up front was mapping out the current workflows, understanding how things worked on Salesforce, and taking this opportunity to think about the changes to improve the experience for the customer and also for the team. I believe, putting it politely, that the council made a few tweaks to the Salesforce system, so the customer relations team were very excited about being able to list their thoughts and wishes for the new CXM system, most of which I'd like to add have been achieved. The detailed workflows included where we wanted the notifications to be sent and to agree the closure codes and statuses. From this, the online forms were drafted, and all of this was played back to the customer relations team, and once they were happy, then to James and Richard from Jadu. We were then ready for the magic to begin. Well, actually, that was for James and Richard to actually do the do. With regards to the communication, looking back, this was an area that if I had my time again, I would have done slightly differently. I thought that by sending emails to all the heads of service and directors, plus providing detail in our internal weekly bulletin, would start getting the key messages across to what CXM will do, the testing and deployment dates, etc. So a good learning point here is to attend as many internal department or divisional meetings as you can. Not everyone actually reads their emails, and that was certainly something I found out. Although I started communicating 4 months before the subject access request went live, we still encountered a number of queries from people asking what it was about, so please do invest plenty of time with this. This leads nicely on to the pick list. So what is this? Well, for customer relations, it means a list of how the council is split up into service groups and the individuals identified within. This was something that customer relations were using in Salesforce. But for ICT, they didn't like the term pick list, as for them it meant the categories and subcategories that are presented to the citizens on the forms. And then we'd understand who it needs to be assigned to deal with the case. So whatever you call this list or spreadsheet, and it will be huge, please remember the following. From a customer perspective, on the forms that they see, keep it simple from a category and subcategory point of view. This drop-down list does not need to reflect the team names that you use internally, but instead should be presented in an easy-to-understand way to help the customer focus on the area within the council that their concern or inquiry is about. This certainly helps the customer relations team when it comes to assigning the case. From an internal point of view, this list needs to clearly identify the team group name, who in the group will be assigned the case, and the name of someone to escalate it to if the SLA is about to breach. This takes time, and actually it takes a lot of time. And if we had done this sooner, I believe our testing process would have been a lot easier. Also, think about the number of groups that you have too. We started with over 150 groups and have now whittled this down to a more manageable number. But our aim is to get this to an even smaller number. So check and double check with the service areas that they are happy with how it's being categorised. This will reduce the anxiety raised from the service areas. For the testing, this did not start well for us. At the beginning, for subject access requests, we did not build in enough time to test ourselves before we actually asked the representatives from the service areas to test in small groups. This created more work for us, as we then needed to rebuild their confidence in the new system, as the first wave of testing was not successful, and as a consequence created doubts. So test thoroughly before sharing with others. Make sure that you have ICT available if anything fails. And when testing with service areas, keep the numbers small to enable one-to-one time to be given during the testing period. Ensure that you have test scripts ready so that individuals can work at their own pace and record the issues raised. We had a very lengthy snagging list from this, and hindsight is a wonderful thing, but with the time we had, our customer relations team worked their socks off in providing additional testing sessions to ensure that it all worked. For the training, we set up multiple training sessions, some open to all, some targeted with various service area groups, and some one-to-one sessions with some of the key users that we identified. Basic training guides were provided, and we invested the time in developing some online training to support anyone at any time of day. The online training breaks down each part of the process and walks people through what needs to be done and in what order. We are now 7 months down the line, and the customer relations team are still training people. I suppose the thing is with these case types is that you never know when you're actually going to receive your first one. So a lot of time is still being spent at divisional meetings and smaller team meetings to train those that have actually forgotten what to do. We decided to stagger the deployment of the case types. We started with subject access requests in March, followed by members, MP, leaders in May, and then FOI, EIRs and complaints in June. Ombudsman was deployed a couple of months after that because we were not using Salesforce for that case type. The staggered approach certainly helped with the communication across the council and helped the customer relations team facilitate drop-in sessions for a couple of weeks after go live to help with the transition. For us, the reporting element was the bit that we were unsure of with CXM, and it worried us the most. Salesforce had provided the required reports, and the expectation of the customer relations team was that CXM would do the same. So this area has probably been the biggest learning curve for us. But ICT and customer relations have been working on the reporting element since go live in June, and we are more comfortable and confident now in what can be produced. Our issues were around the SLA missed not being accurate, and the FOI composites, it was not capturing the SLA due date. All teething problems as you would expect, but please make sure you build in time to ensure that all of the different reports that you are required to provide. So the end, or is it? So I've already highlighted some of the learning points already, but I just wanted to highlight some others. So we started with a very difficult set of case types. It was not easy, and you may choose to spread them out more. However, now we've done this, everything else will be a doddle. We, I actually mean customer relations and ICT, are continuously making improvements to the workflow. The London Borough of Hounslow decided to leave the 436 outstanding records in Salesforce and work with the service areas to actually close them down. The project was also impacted by the delivery mid-January to mid-February of the Garden Waste CXM project. This effectively removed most of the ICT resource from this delivery onto that project. So make sure that you have that wider view of other projects that are happening that could actually impact on this resource. James from Jadu was a star and went the extra mile, in my view, to deliver the changes required. An issues log with clearly defined roles is essential for this project. This would stop multiple duplicate requests, and I should know because we actually had quite a few. It is worth thinking about the issues log and who owns it and how the fixes are captured and closed. This can get messy, and there was a period of time where we lost control of this, but all came good in the end though. Build in plenty of time for testing and ensure you leave adequate space between them to enable amendments to be made. It is sometimes too easy to overcomplicate what should always be a simple process, and that was evident during our project process. Think about any third parties that you work with, make sure they are involved from the outset. And we can honestly say that CXM is 100 times better than Salesforce on the case management side. The reporting side is still in progress, but we have come on leaps and bounds since go live. So far, since actually going live with this, the team have received 3,915 cases, and that's broken down into 240 corporate complaints, 54 EIRs, 1,192 FOIs, 1,707 member inquiries, they've been busy, 455 MP inquiries, 125 SARs and 142 Ombudsman inquiries. And it is really working well with that. So what is next? We're now developing our new process for blue badges and freedom passes. But this is another story for another day. Thank you.